Hello, Jonesy here. In this video, I'm going to do my best to show you why coding one single button can be difficult. Usually, coding one single button really is not hard, but it also depends on what you are trying to do, what your boss wants you to do, or what you need to do for your website that you're creating. So, in order to show you this, first, I'm going to go into app.js. So just go in here, get rid of everything in the div, and create a default HTML button, like so. Save it, and go back, and you see this thing is tiny. It's not what we want. So even just a default HTML button isn't going to suffice. So if you go back, let's check out the CSS. So we don't need any of this really. So let's just create a selector and call it button. And now you see, if you want this thing to be bigger, you got to give it a width and a height. So let's give it a width of, I haven't even experimented, so I have no idea. Let's try 200 pixels and maybe a height of, I don't know, 5 or 100 pixels. I don't know why I said 5. Try maybe 300 here. And then let's put this style onto here. What do I call it? Button? Yeah. Save both of these. Now you see we have a somewhat decent sized button, but that probably isn't going to suffice still for whatever you're creating. Probably need some text inside of there. Probably need to decide what happens when you click this. Also, this doesn't look very good. It's just like a gray box. At least something happens when you hover over it. That's good. So you can already see that just the basic setup of a button on your website is going to be, it's not going to be the hardest thing, but it's also not going to be the easiest thing. And it's going to be different for every single button that you create. Because right here, I'm just creating a button on the page. So there's not much else. There's like one div. But if you're creating it inside of a header, it's going to be a whole new thing because you're creating it inside of this header div. And the CSS could be completely different for that compared to other div styles. All right, so let's kind of make this look a little bit better. I'm going to try and get this to the minimal level that would be needed for a very, very basic button. Like say you just want to get the functionality of a button. You don't even want the functionality. It's okay if you click it and nothing happens. You just want a button on the screen that looks decent. You can tell that it's a button. So pretty much, in my opinion, all we really need here is going to give it a margin or something to make it come down here a little bit. Maybe change the background color and put some text inside of it. So putting text inside of it's super easy. You can you can use a paragraph tag, but I think you can also just do this button, and that will work. So now I'm going to give a margin to it to just kind of get it off the very top of the screen. Give a margin top of, I don't know, 100 pixels. Don't forget your semicolons. What else do I want to do? Oh yeah. You can also add a background color. I will make this blue. That's probably going to look terrible for a button, but that's okay. Now let's take a look at it. There you go. So I feel like really the text inside is what makes it stand out. Like if you saw just a blue box, you'd probably be like, what the heck is that? But if it has some text that says like click me or home, then it's like, oh, okay, that's a button. Even if it's really terrible looking like this one. So this is the minimal button, but let's say you want to make it look better. What does that take? How do you know what better is? Like when do you decide when to stop? So I'll just give you some examples of things you can do. You can go into the CSS you can use border radius to round the corners, say maybe 6 pixels. You can use, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. You can make the actual border thickness. Let's see, I think just border's good. You can make it bigger, so let's say 3 pixels. So let's use dashed lines. I don't even know if you'll be able to see this, but you can use dashed lines. And then you can also change the color of the borders themselves, so make it red. And another thing you can do, you can choose what happens when you hover. So when you hover over it, use that selector, and let's just change the background. Make it like purple. And let's see what that does. Alright, so now we got this button with dashed borders that are red. If you hover over it, it turns purple, blue otherwise. But you can do all kinds of stuff. It's honestly limitless. Many times, a company wants you to create whatever elements you're creating on the screen in a very specific way. They want it to have a very specific style. And it's your job to figure that out. But even though there's a specific style, you gotta know when to stop. You gotta know when this looks good enough. Maybe you have some peers that will look at it for you and they tell you. However, depending on what you're working on, a lot of times I'm working on minimal viable products, so I just want to get the most minimal functioning button, element, whatever it is, possible. And again, whenever you have a bunch of stuff on the screen, not just a button, you have a header, you have all these sidebars and other elements on the screen, you gotta take those into account as well. And that's gonna make it pretty difficult. You gotta make sure your button's staying exactly where you want it. And then there's things like minimizing, and you gotta make sure it stays in the same place, or maybe you don't want it to stay in the same place. Maybe if you minimize it to a certain area, you want the button to get small and go into the corner. There's all kinds of things. It's limitless. A lot of times what people do is they just use Bootstrap. Go over here to old Google and type in Bootstrap button. And it'll give you all these different buttons to use. See, anything right there you can use. Anything on this page. You can use all these buttons. And it gives you the code exactly for it. And if these ones look a little basic, there's all kinds of other buttons that you can find on other websites. See, these look different. They still look kind of basic, but these ones are also different. And it gives you the code for exactly how to do it. But one issue with using this is you didn't write the code. There's a chance you're going to put it into your program and you're not going to understand what's going on. Say you put this danger button into your program and turns out you don't want it to be red. This is actually a really easy thing to change. So hold on, let me think of something else. So say that you don't want this button to be in a certain position. Say there's a header and for some reason the button is not appearing where you expect it to be. This happens very often. For me, positioning can be the hardest part of styling. And when you use code from somewhere else, a lot of times it's going to make it harder because you don't know what the code is doing unless you go and analyze it. And a lot of times you just get confused. So for me, I prefer to do all my code, all my styling completely on my own. I'll go and reference other code and be like, oh, I can use that. But I'd kind of turn it into my own. So I think the lesson to learn in this video is that define your goals. You want to make sure that you or whoever you hired to write this code for you knows exactly what they're doing. How much effort and energy do they actually need to put into what they're doing? Do they just need the most minimal button? Or do you want them to create something absolutely beautiful, even if it takes hours or days or months? They shouldn't be spending months on a button, but you get what I mean. I believe that was all I wanted to say for this video, so to end it, I'm simply going to click on my button here. See you later.